Well, first of all, I just want to say welcome and thanks. I have the job of talking about this exciting topic, of competitive advantage. I know, as you know, most of you are focused on your technologies, but this is really important if you hope to see this become something in the marketplace. A couple of notes on the session. We're going to spend about 20 minutes or so just talking to you about competitive advantage, how to think about it, about competitors, maybe how to find competitors or think about competitors. And then the last half, we'll have a little Q&A time after that. And I would say if you have any questions as we go, you can chat them. Emily and Braley can either respond or interrupt me if it makes sense. And then the last half of the session is going to be practice for you. So I would encourage you that, if you're both articulating your competitive advantage and thinking about your competitors. So as we go through this, I would just encourage you to think about your technology, your innovation, what you're trying to bring to the market as we go through this. And so you'll be prepared for the last half. And again, hopefully you come out of this with some articulation of your competitive advantage. So as we think about competitive advantage, it's kind of this intersection of the research and development that you're doing, your product, what you're trying to bring to the market, the value proposition that it has, right? And the market's acceptance for that, right? So it's this unique kind of sustainable edge. Why are you different from the other competitors? And again, you see value proposition in there. This is really more than just value proposition, right? It's about your business, right? Or the business that a licensee or someone else might need to think about. So the other thing to think about is, this is not about just easily, things that can be replicated by your competitors, right? You need it to be clear and concise. It needs to be about not only your product, but in technology, but how you're going to bring it to the market, how you're going to compete against what else is there, right? It should be focused on your position against your competitors, right? So, and sometimes I know a lot of brand new things think they don't have competitors, but you always have a competitor, right? And it should be informed by that competitive activity. So part of what we're going to talk to in today is like how you would kind of seek out to learn about your competitors, right? And where they might be. Okay. So the other thing I just want to talk, value proposition and competitive advantage, sometimes they kind of overlap a bit, but they are different, right? And so value proposition is very much about the user and the messaging and why you're different than other things that are on the market, right? As competitive advantage, right, where you really need to have a unique competitive advantage is how you're going to compete, right? How your business is going to do this. So this simple example here, same product, same company, right? On this value proposition is these eco-friendly cleaning products, right? That's good for the environment and carbon footprint, right? So they've articulated sort of their value proposition. But their competitive advantage is that they have a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility, right? It allows them to get that low cost from competitors. So it's not going to be easy for someone to maybe invest. They might, have very, very expensive state-of-the-art equipment, right? So that may be their competitive advantage, right? But they're bringing actually a low cost, low cost to as a competitive advantage, right? So they did this by investing in knowledge, know-how, and equipment, right? And that's basically their competitive advantage, not the fact that it's carbon footprint or effective. That's more the value proposition. So hopefully, and again, sometimes people use competitive advantage as an unfair competitive advantage, right? What do you have that no one else has that allows you to compete in the marketplace, right? Just being different may not have a competitive advantage, right? So, and the importance of doing that, right? If you're thinking about, again, some of you might be thinking about licensing, some of you think about starting your own business, whatever it might be, whoever takes it on, if they're a licensee, they're going to want a strong competitive advantage, again, to help them. They're not going to invest in these things if they don't have a good position in the marketplace, have some longevity, whatever that, that could be, that could turn into resilience, in confidence, right, in this investment that they're going to make, right? And because again, many of yours, I'm sure, you're going to be looking for investors, and they're going to be looking for these attributes. These are what a good competitive advantage will bring to them, right? Will help you secure that funding. So I'm just going to go through a few types of of competitive advantages. There's no one right answer, but there's some thinking. This is just kind of how help you think. And again, you should have as many as possible, right? You need at least one, but as many as possible would be good. So I suspect that most of you will probably have this one as a technical approach, right? So what's your discovery? What's your new and novel idea? What's uniqueness that you're bringing to the market? So you might have a technical approach competitive advantage versus other things that are on the market today. It could be intellectual property, right? You might be a patent or copyright or somehow some form of intellectual property protection that at least gives you an advantage over your competition. They'll have to find some other way to compete, right? If they're going to try to compete for that market. So that's another fairly strong competitive advantage. Regulatory or compliance, right? That's another way, right? So do you have an FDA clearance or breakthrough designation or whatever it might be that might give you some exclusivity in the market and some barrier, for your competition to be able to compete with you, right? So that's another way. These top three are probably maybe in some of the ones that you have. Others can be customer experience or patient experience. And again, maybe some of you have these, but this could be things like an invasive versus a non-invasive approach, right? It's easier, it's painless, better accessibility. There's many things that could be a competitive advantage to other things that are on the market today. The team or the enabling partners, right? You could be world-renowned researcher on one particular topic. You're the expert. That's going to be a competitive advantage to others that might not have that experience. You might be partnering with other top leaders in this industry or collaborators. It could be hospitals or clinics, research institutions. It could be a partner that has the ability to manufacture this, right? That others don't, right? So you can think about both your team and your extended team, right? And how you might be able to compete and actually use this as a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And then it could be something like translation or future use. It could be something like a platform that you're targeting one thing today, but this platform will not have to be developed fully again for something else. So you might have this opportunity for going into other markets or other uses that could be very strong, competitive advantage. So these are just some ways to think about it. Like I said, there's no one right way, but you need to find a way to articulate why you have your advantage, your difference, why you're unique in the marketplace compared to your competitors. So we'll just have a couple of examples here. So, and again, remember, some of these can be both, right? So this one be an example. Exosome, basically, they have a competitive advantage in that diagnosing prostate using a liquid biopsy solution, right? So something very unique and novel. They've got some patents and they've got protection in there, but that's their real competitive advantage. And they have expertise. They're world-renowned experts in this. So this would be an example of a technical approach, competitive advantage. No labs, another one. This is one where this could be considered a patient or customer experience competitive advantage, right? And they probably also have a technical one, right? Because it's a electronics technology, but from a patient standpoint, it's non-contact, right? And it's non-invasive. So you basically have something that's easy to use, very accessible, and so from the patient standpoint, it's painless, it's simple. They don't have consumables. And so there's a lot of advantages from the patient or customer experience for a competitive advantage. And then regulatory could be another one. This one's Pixie and Vision, right? So they've got a new device basically to help people with vision problems. And they got this breakthrough device designation, right? And so getting that, right, from the FDA gives them an advantage in several ways, right? Competitive advantage. One is they're in early, so they get to work collaboration. They get some advantages on studies and other things. So this would be an example of a regulatory or compliance competitive advantage that you might have as you're trying to compete in the marketplace. So again, so that's kind of the competitive advantage. And basically to do this, to really understand what's out there and how your competitive advantage kind of plays against others in the market, you have to know about your competition, right? So next few slides, we're just going to talk about how you might look for and find out about your competitors, right? And just, again, some different ways to think about what a competitor could be, right? So obviously you've got your direct competitors. That's the one you probably already know about. You're probably developing this because you're trying to change the status quo with some company or way that's out there, right? So that's the obvious one, right? And then the indirect competitors, someone that's doing it in a different way, maybe not so obvious, right? How they're doing it, and so that could be something you got to think, like, how they might be able to compete with you, right? And then this third one is standard of care, or basically a do nothing, right? The inertia to get the market to change is not insignificant, right? So you should recognize that. So standard of care always is kind of a hard one to get over, even if you've got this value proposition that sounds great. Again, without a competitive advantage and without having that on your side, right, you're unlikely to change the standard of care, right? Just don't underestimate, do nothing as a strong competitor. And then on the right, you can just see we've got listed some. These are just ways to think about competitors, just so you can kind of spend some time thinking about and not be surprised. The whole point of this is kind of to really scan the market and scan for what's out there, right? Could be future, right? Could be someone in Europe that has something that they intend to come to the US that you might not be aware of, right? Obviously emerging technologies you might kind of keep your eye on because you likely are in that same boat. But this is just, again, some ideas and ways in which you could think about competitors that you might have out there. And so with that, you can think about, and this should make sense. You're all researchers, so you just might not research your competitors as much, right? But just, again, think simple things like, search alerts, right? You might create set up some searches that you can monitor weekly or daily, depending on how active the market may be, right? Obviously, reading peer-reviewed literature, that's probably something you're used to, probably keeping your eye on, things like that. Industry reports are a good one. They always talk about the emerging, without even buying the report. If you just get the sample of the report, if you read down in there, they'll say, here, these are sort of the newcomers, and you'll also find out who the actual the incumbents are, right? Trade shows, conferences, talking with people, right? Calling up people, we think is a lot of times is where you find the nuggets. You will get nuance when you talk to someone. You might learn something that they won't put on their website, right? And so the whole idea in this is be curious and then find ways that you can set up automation or just pick a day a month or something like that to just look for your competitors, right? And because it will change over time, and as you're developing things. There's probably someone out there looking at you as well as a competitor, right? So you need to do the same thing. And this understanding how these others are going about trying to attack the market that you're interested in will help inform whether you have a competitive edge. Maybe you shift. Maybe it'll help inform some of the decisions you make on moving forward with your product idea. So you also can do some analysis, right? So once you know these competitors, then you can actually do a little deeper dive. And so there's a lot of these frameworks. These are just 3 that I'm just going to quickly go through. But again, if you wanted to learn more, you might, once you've identified a competitor, you might want to go in and learn more. These are a couple of ways, frameworks in which you can look at competitors, right? So what we're doing in the next couple of slides is a fictional company, MediConnect. We just made this up just for this example, that does a wearable device for continuous monitoring cardiac health, right? And so we're just going to kind of give an example of how you might do each of these frameworks just to learn more about that company. And again, you might do this first for your own company and then maybe after that with the competitors. So I'm just going to walk through these pretty quickly because they're fairly straightforward, and there's a lot of other support out there if you're interested in more. So let's just take MediConnect, the strength. the SWOT, basically strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strength and weaknesses is all about the internal. That's about you, your company, what you're going to be. So that's, your strength, what you do well, what you don't do well, right? Opportunities and threats are about external. That's what the market and others that are out there and what things could change, right? So in this case, MediConnect, they've got this advanced technology, they've got clinical validation, they've got regulatory approval, a strong portfolio. They seem like they've got some really strong competitive advantage out there, right? The challenge they have, the weaknesses, they have limited market penetration, right? Their pricing is higher, right? And they have limited distribution. So they're slow getting going, right? They've got a lot of great things, but they haven't really penetrated the market the way they want. The opportunities they may have, the market's growing, right? So that's good for them, right? Telemedicine integration that might be able to work with their device, right? And they've got some collaborations that are possible, right? So this is kind of in the opportunities. The threats, basically where, there's established competitors and they might decide to take them on, right? Especially the incumbents. If they're big companies and they have the pockets to do that, they might try to challenge them, right? Regulatory changes could come up, right? There may be some things that if it's a fast moving space that you're looking at, that could change, right? And clearly technological changes, things like you guys are doing, you people are all doing, because, this is changing all the time, right? So you just, all the reason more to keep your eye on this. So this is just an example of a SWOT. You should probably do this for your own company anyway, just it's healthy for you to kind of see where you think you do well. And then you pick a competitor and you could do the same thing, from either reading reports or the website or whatever. You should be able to fill this out, and that will help inform how you would compete. Another way to do it is by customer segmentation. So this is essentially personas, right? The users that you have, right? So let's say, these three examples, the Careful Chris, Active Arthur, and Senior Sarah, right? They all have different needs and uses, right? Using the same technology, right? So for them, they could go through, sort of what are the characteristics for each of these? What are their needs? What do they need to do? And then what's your competitive advantages? And so in MediConnect's case, one of the things they did is they've got this software interface platform that's adaptable for each of these, right? So they can produce without redesigning everything. They've got this user interface that can satisfy all of them, right? So one that just wants to be updated and it's accurate, another one that wants real time and wants to optimize, and another one that wants really simple, right? So their competitive advantage is really on how they're going to bring it to those particular markets, right? So that's an example of, again, just another way to look at your competition and sort of particularly into these segments that you're targeting. So that's just an example of a framework to do a customer segmentation. And then the third one that just shows benchmarking. Again, this is a lot of times with direct competitors, this makes more sense. And again, these columns are just for, just to kind of give you an example. It would make more sense with yours. You probably have a lot more. There's a lot of scientific piece that might be in there as well. But you can just see how you compare it. So MediConnect costs more. They're non-invasive, which they got great patents and they're on the market today, but they've got a competitor basically that's lower cost, right? But is invasive. Again, sometimes the market health, industry wants cheap, right? So they don't want to pay more if they don't have to, even if sometimes the benefits are better. And that's something to really think about, with a lot of new technologies, right? You've got to, what's the problem you're solving and will the market pay for that, right? And then got to keep an eye on an emerging competitor that might come out with a very low cost item. Maybe it doesn't do everything, but it's also non-invasive, right? But that's in prototype stage. So this is a way you might have a list of 8 or 10 companies, right? You could do this with, and you can look at these. And again, hopefully that would give you some sense of what the others that you deem competitors would be out there and how you're competing against those competitors. So that's another framework. And by the way, there's lots of these, right? Depending on how sophisticated you want to go. There's the, value chain, right? Basically, if you have to manufacture something in a unique way, what does that value chain look like? You've got the Porter's strategies. You've got frameworks with, resource-based and other innovation frameworks, right? And disruptive innovation and things like that. So there's lots of frameworks. I just picked these 3 just to give you an example of how these frameworks might be used, for your analysis, right? And so I'm just going to wrap up with the last kind of takeaways that I hope you kind of take from this, and as you think about it, right? First of all, understanding competitors and your competitive advantage is really critical. If you expect your idea to have a place in the market, right, you really need to understand that. Competitive advantage will come in many forms, right? Hope you realize that, and you should have as many as you can, right? That's an important thing to think about. Continually scanning for competitors will help avoid surprises. That's the one thing. People have heads down, you're working on it, and you don't even realize it's just someone that's working on the same thing, and it's very different and may even be more competitive. Competitive advantages will change over time, right? Technologies change, regulations change. And so costs come down, things like that. So you need to keep looking at these. Changing the status quo or do nothing takes inertia, and it's not. And don't underestimate how much inertia it takes, right? So always consider that a competitor. And the last thing is if you're looking for investors, right? Investors invest in ideas that have strong competitive advantages, right? And again, this is a little bit more about your business and how this idea in your business can bring this to fruition, and how you're going to compete against others that are trying to do the same thing. So with that, I think that's at the end. I've thrown a lot at you. It's relatively straightforward, I think, but let's open it up if you have any questions. Happy to take them.